Digging myself out of feeling stuck. That's been my task. It's like being in a fog. Like I have vague feelings like I want to write and I want to be back where I was being creative, and it's just stuck in there somewhere. And it's painful, it's terrible. I've been writing about and working through some grief stuff.
Yes.
I think that's been part of the soup that has held me back in a way.
Is there a piece of you that's afraid to feel all the emotions around the grief, and that's why you're not expressing any of it?
I think that's been part of it. Like it just gets so enormous that I don't even know where to start, or I'd just rather not. I don't want to do that anymore.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Gay Mom Girlfriend podcast. This is another one of those where I actually got to bring people into my house. It was so super cool, but we didn't get to hug because COVID is mean. But anyway, today we have Robin Renée. Now, Robin has been in my membership for, I think, over a year, maybe a year and a half, somewhere around there. And they are super cool. What Robin brings to the world is this deep desire, and this might be something you really relate to, but this deep desire to have a profound impact. And what they said is that there's this need for people to understand all aspects of themselves and fall in love with themselves. So when I was talking to them about this in the episode, what you're gonna hear is there's some emotion that they don't want to process. And oh my gosh, how many of us can raise our hands and say, yeah, me too on that one? And what we all need to understand, and what I really hope you take away from this episode, is that we do not have to be afraid of our emotions. We do not have to be afraid to experience it, as uncomfortable as it can be. That's usually access to the best parts of us. And we see that in movies, right? We're saying, oh, feel your emotions, do that stuff. But I think what you'll see is that Robin is actually on the precipice of breaking through that, and after a year of fog, they're ready to move on. All right, so without further ado, let's get to it, and I want you to listen for where you might be holding back because there's stuff you don't want to feel. All right, so Robin, I'm so excited to have you here. First of all, I'm just so excited to get to meet you in person. I think we've known each other for
about a year, I think, something like that.
Year. So yeah, that's right. It was the middle of like lockdown, right?
Yes.
Is that right? Bananas. So we haven't met in person yet, and I'm so sad that we can't hug and like be all gooey, but we can't. But when I first sent out this email and said, hey, come on over to my house, let's have a conversation, let's get coached, you responded like really fast. And I think what you really wanted to talk about was all the different things that you do. You do a lot of really cool artistic, political, social endeavors. And you were kind of like, how do I put all of this together? Is that right?
Right. It's sort of like, how does it all fit into one concept? And how do I do it all? That's sort of the recurring thing.
Lay out for me everything that you do. I mean, I think I know, but for everybody who's listening or watching who's never heard of what you do, can you lay it out for us?
Sure, yes. I am a singer-songwriter, and I've got several CDs out. It's a combination of like singer-songwriter, alternative rock type stuff, and then I have some Indian mantra kirtan music. That's another branch of what I do.
Wow.
You know, I'm really sort of mostly focused on the songwriting thing right now, but I mean, it's still all a part of everything.
Wow. And how long have you been writing and singing?
Forever. I had my first band when I was 10, so.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. Okay, so long time. She's 12, so it's not that long.
Sure, yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Right. So, my very short career. I have a podcast called The Leftscape, which I co-host with Wendy Sheridan, which is a cool thing that we've been doing for 3 years now, which I love. I really love that project a lot. I'm, also a writer and things like that, so I have poetry and book ideas and those sorts of things that I would like to sort of do as maybe as an extension of my music, or at least for that audience and expand from that, maybe something like that.
Okay.
And I have, I guess, what you call my day job, which I do a lot of SEO type
Oh my gosh.
stuff. That's really what I spend a lot of my time doing, and I enjoy it, but it's the other pieces that need to grow and become more of what I'm doing.
If I were to say at the end of your life, right, people were to say, Robin was, what would you want them to say?
Wow. Had an impact. That, like helped people know themselves more completely or something. I don't know. I don't have a word for it, but it's like, I think, there's something to do with creating things that matter to people and get them to experience deeply. That's really what feels important to me, and to know and love themselves.
Oh, well, that's pretty amazing. Okay. Like, I like just was so moved by that. I'm like, okay, say more things. Like, that was pretty amazing. I'm not speechless very often, Robin. Like, we need to be honest about that. You just knocked me speechless for a second because I could feel how much that matters. And in looking at who you want to be, in knowing that you want to make an impact, what do you want to do next in business for you, in career path? Or do you want to keep it as, listen, my career path is the SEO work, it pays well, I enjoy it, it's fine, and this is just an outlet for me to really express this important part of me? Or do you want this to become the focus? I think I know the answer, but I'm going to ask you anyway.
Really the music and writing and producing art and podcasting, and that is really my deeper calling.
Okay, so do you know whereabouts, and we don't have to talk exact numbers or anything, but do you know whereabouts you would need to be able to flip that switch? Are we close? Is it going to take a long time? So is there more audience needed to be able to, say, monetize a podcast with advertising?
It's going to take a while. Yeah, we need to find our path to that. And I think we're growing. It feels good, but it's not there yet.
Okay.
You know.
What would be ideal for you with the podcast? What would you like to see happen as far as growth and numbers? Where are we talking 10x, 100x? Oh, mine's 1,000. I'd like to 1,000x. Like
10,000 would be fantastic.
Got it. Okay.
You know.
Okay.
I know we can do it. It's just I'm not sure of the steps.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like if I'm just given like the very next first step or something, like then it will click. But I feel like we're doing a bunch of things, but it's a little bit floundery, I guess.
Okay. So it says it's just not focused, is what it sounds like. Not focused in content, in business trajectory.
Yeah, because I think we have a sense of what we need to do, and then time runs out, and then we're like, well, maybe this other thing would be better.
So talk to me really quickly, just as we stay on the podcast, talk to me about the structure of how you guys are producing episodes. What's happening, the frequency?
They're every 2 weeks.
Okay.
And we reach out to potential guests, you know, as we can. Like as we start doing that, like in our breaks, we have usually a couple of episodes that are reruns or whatever, and we do that. And then we have 10 episodes in a season. We record on a Monday and put out an episode on a Wednesday. So we have a sense of what our segments are going to be. We want to react to news.
I can see then what is happening there is the sense of urgency, right? Wanting to be super relevant to what's happening for people. And is it really making sure your opinion gets shared inside that quick turnaround? And then feeling like you're only two people and it's like, oh my gosh, when are we going to get this done? Is that the pattern?
That's part of it, you know. And plus there's content that's really evergreen too. That's just about, you know, larger conversations. But yeah, the news piece is what makes it that quick of a turnaround from recording to it needs to be out. That's
Got it. Okay. What would you like to be doing with it that you're not?
I would like to have interns doing a lot of the daily work stuff for it.
Yeah.
And I've made overtures to reaching out to make that happen. And I think I get cold feet about it a little bit.
Really? What happens? Talk to me. This is going to help so many people. What you're about to say, I can feel it. It's so what happens to people.
I don't know what I can exactly offer an intern that would be fair. Like I need to get it to a place.
So it's more nerves about why would they want to come work with us? Is that the feeling? Or is it that we can't pay them enough? Or we don't even know what they'd be doing to warrant the payment?
No, I think we could give them plenty of stuff to do.
Like, no. In fact, they would be busy for 3 years. Okay, got it. Right. So there's enough work, but it's like, can we pay that?
Can we pay that? Can I figure out what I should pay? Where do I go first? Who do I reach out to?
Okay.
And we've had ideas, and I just never, of all the things, like there are certain things that I'm clear about what I need to do. So I do the things that I'm clear about, and that one I'm going like, how do I do this?
Got it. I'm going to so call bullshit on that. I love you so much. You're so smart. There's no way you don't know how to find somebody. There's just no way. I don't buy it. You guys are so smart. Both of you are so smart.
Yeah.
Go post it on a Facebook group somewhere. Find your freaking intern and get that handled. I actually think you guys might actually have a fear of turning over some of the work. And
that's definitely part of it.
But it's like my spidey senses are tingling on that one.
That's part of it for me. But I think at least in my own mind, I'm like, what's the best place for me to go to find the right person? And that answer doesn't come up clear to me. But yeah, I'm sure I could just post it somewhere and find someone. But I guess because I wasn't sure, so I just never did or something.
Yeah, right. And that's where I'm like, nah, no, you're so smart. Like and listen, you might take a couple people.
Yeah.
And that happens to all of us. I might take a couple people for you guys to get that. But what I'm going to say to you is your brain power, right, on the topics of conversations you guys are having, the way that you're having the conversations, the relevancy and getting your voices out there, both of you, is so important I understand that can be scary sometimes because people are like, I don't really want that many people listening if I think about it, right? Because then I'm like, that part can happen. And I have a feeling there's a little bit of that at play, not too much, but a little bit. But also understanding that's not what you're not here to be editing the podcast. There are people who are. But there are people who are like geniuses, right? That it's like, oh, thank God you're doing this because it would have never sounded like that if it didn't have your hands on it, right? And that's who should be editing your podcast. That's what they're here to do.
Right. Wendy is our sound editor, and she's great, but she wants to. She's to hand that over to.
Exactly. So it's like this thing. We have to understand there are people all over the world, anywhere, in our own neighborhoods, right? And in our own communities who their work is a level 10 for them, meaning it lights them up. They are completely expanded by doing that work. And those are the people you want on your team because that's what they're here to do. And they're so good at it and you should not be messing in their game. There's kind of that piece of it like, you're amazing, I'm out, right? Just like other people would say about you, like you also wouldn't want, someone who is, I don't know, helping you guys pick topics, tell you exactly what you should say, right? Like that's not how that works. That's your 10. That's where you need to be focused. And I think from what I'm hearing is you're not able to focus on just that. I think there's a little bit of fear around that. Like actually being responsible for what you're saying, what you're putting out there and having everyone hear it. Like when we say, let's 10,000 times it, let's see what happens. It's like, they're right there waiting for you to say, go ahead, say it, go ahead. Like, and we all know they're out there. So there is that fear to push through that part of it, Robin, and let your voice be heard. And don't hide behind the idea that you don't know how to find an editor. Like I'm just seriously gonna roll my eyes at you. Like seriously, you're like, are you kidding? You're so smart. You can find that. And again, it might take a couple people. You'll be fine.
Well, you gave a real insight there, and that is find someone who it really, really feels powerful for. Because I think in my mind, I was thinking of some poor college student who just needs to do something for some credits or something, and that's. Okay, that's a way to find someone, but that's not great for everybody in some ways.
Well, so I don't think that's the game you're playing. And there are some people that's the game is like, let me introduce people to this and see if they like it. And that's actually part of what they're up to.
Right.
That's not the game you're playing, and that's cool.
Okay.
Your game is to get your voice out there.
Right.
And to share your perspective and to let people see who you are and what you've gone through and why you think that way. And I think there's a unique perspective there that the world would really like to hear. And instead you're telling me you can't find an intern. No. Like, I'm just going to look at you and be like, no, that doesn't work. And then moving on to the singing songwriting, what would you want that to look like?
I want to be writing again and recording. I feel like I've spent a long time just really being a solo singer-songwriter with a guitar kind of person.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
I like to do that some of the time, but that was sort of wound up being all the time. So right now I'm just getting some home studio stuff to really start to look into sound libraries and creating more complex sounds, like just on my own that I can perform live or just in terms of composing, that sort of thing. So ultimately, one day, again, live shows, but in a different guise, like with a fuller sound. I love playing with bands, and I would also love to do solo shows with sort of that's more sample based and do a different kind of sound than I had been. I've got music that could be heard in soundtracks and other types of media.
Yeah.
So that I would like to have that be the thing.
You would.
Yes.
You would. And I'm assuming part of that is sharing the actual sound. But is that also the level of commercial success that you would like to have the reputation of someone who produces that kind of music that can support other forms of art, basically, right, with that as well?
I hadn't thought of it in those terms, but yeah, that would be good.
Yeah. So what are you doing about that part?
So digging myself out of feeling stuck, that's been my task in this last few months.
Has it been in just the last few months? So this wasn't like pandemic related, this was life related?
I think it was life related. I think the pandemic didn't help.
Yeah.
It didn't help most people, for sure. But that's a thing that I can't let stop me anymore.
Yeah, what is it? What happens in your head when you say you're stuck? Let's say, do you go to do something and then you're like, nah. Like, what happens?
No, it's more like being in a fog. Like I have vague feelings like I want to write and I want to be back where I was or better, or just being creative, and I'm like, it's just stuck in there somewhere, and it's painful, it's terrible.
Has this ever happened before?
It's happened in shorter stints, I would say. This has been a big one. I think I probably told you in one of the online sessions that I've been writing about and working through some grief stuff.
Yes.
I think that's been part of the soup that has held me back in a way. So that's something.
Is there a piece of you that's afraid to feel all the emotions around the grief, and that's why you're not expressing any of it?
I think that's been part of it.
Yeah.
Like it just gets so enormous that I don't even know where to start, or I'd just rather not. I could just do something dumb instead, and I don't want to do that anymore. So I'm kind of making myself do things, even though I don't know where it's going to go. I'm sort of forcing my hand a bit this season.
Is that working?
I don't know. It's starting. I mean, I'm really just at the beginning of it.
Okay.
I'm like saying, okay, I'm getting new equipment. I'm setting this up. I'm going to make sounds. It might suck. I don't care. It needs to be. I haven't felt fully myself making music.
Well, I think I'm going to assert something. You tell me if you think I'm crazy or it's not fitting for you, but I'm feeling that the reason I asked if it happened before, because most of us, when there's a block like that, when our access to self-expression has been severed somehow, there is usually an event that causes that. We don't like just wake up on Tuesday and go, I don't want to be self-expressed anymore. Like something's happened that's knocked us off course. You've cut off access to some level of your emotions here. And that's where I would think, even with the fear I'm sensing, and again, tell me if I'm wrong, I'm not saying I'm right at all, but the fear I'm sensing on the success of the podcast too is there's some part of yourself you sort of like cut off that you don't want to deal with right now.
Probably grief stuff. Probably. I mean, broadly speaking, I think that's what it has been. Then there's like this mountain of how do I dig out of this, and how do I this is a weird story, but the other day I've been for the longest time my house. I like my house. I was fine, but it was just there's all this stuff, and I don't know where anything goes, and I have all these projects, and I want things to be different, and I don't know how to start. And so my cousin came over and was like, "This is an amazing couch. It should be over here. And this table, this is a really beautiful, it would be great here." And he basically said those two things. And suddenly I was like, this is amazing. I know, I understood my whole house, and I was like buying new curtains and creating and
that's awesome.
redesigning things. And it's such a weird anecdote, but I was really hungry for something to click. And I knew that I had this thing, but it wasn't clicking, and it was depressing, actually. And then suddenly it was like a cloud lifting, and it's like such a strange
No, it's actually
thing.
not. It's actually brilliant.
Yes.
Yes.
And so it feels very analogous to what's going on.
There's no question. Because a lot of us, and psychologists agree with this, I just sort of bumped into it one day, but it's been proven that the way we treat our outer space, meaning the space that is around us, is completely indicative of what's going on inside. Yeah. And so it sounds like your cousin was like, and that's amazing, and that's amazing. And you were like, oh my gosh, it is. And all of that's still in you.
Right.
But I think the fog that you're in is not wanting to access the mountain, to use your word. There's this thing that being alive does to us, and it makes us sad.
Yeah.
And it makes us feel loss, and it makes us feel joy, and it makes us feel weird, and it makes us feel like we are lost. And it makes us feel like we're found. And this is what it is to be alive, and there's nothing wrong with it. And I think that's the part we miss. Like, we start to make ourselves wrong for having these human experiences. And we're supposed to be, like, if you're not feeling this, you're dead. So, like, dude, let's feel it. Like, it's okay. And it's not comfortable, but it's not going to hurt you. It's going to feel uncomfortable. And it's really sad. You know, I love Harry Potter. I don't know if you know this about me. I'm a Harry Potter freak. Okay. And there's a scene. There's Luna Lovegood, who's loony, right? She's like, hi. That's her character, is to be a little bit more spiritual, a little bit more ethereal. And her mother died when she was very young, and she was talking to Harry about it. And she said, yeah, I get quite sad about it sometimes. And I was like, if only we could all freaking handle grief. Like she was just like, I get really sad about it sometimes. And then she went on to say, God, my feet are cold. You know, it's like, that's what it is to be alive, Robin. And it's okay to feel like, holy crap, this grief is going to consume me. It's not. And it's the courage to say, this is really going to suck. And I am not willing to live half a life anymore. And when we don't allow grief to come to the surface, and it doesn't matter what that is, and when we shove it down, when we don't allow it to come, we're living half a life. You can't feel great grief without having felt great love. And so it's the appreciation for the grief. This means I'm alive. This means I cared. This means I loved. And honoring that. And it's okay. And really trusting yourself, you're going to get through it. But shoving it down, it's like, it's like trying to shove a beach ball down under the water. You get really tired and the ball wins. It's kind of like that. Right. The grief will come out either way. And in the meantime, while you are so busy trying not to feel it, you can't do what you're here to do. And what you're here to do, left me speechless. That's saying something. And I'd love to see you step into that. I mean, how does that feel to you? What do you think?
Accurate.
Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you got some feeling to do?
I've got feeling to do. And to go back to the room arrangement analogy, I feel like I'm trying to picture my website and the things I need to put together so that it feels cohesive and it's definitely one artist's work, I guess is what you mean.
I think it is already. I think you just haven't stepped into owning it. Oh, I'm Robin, this is what I do. And just owning that piece. I have a podcast that talks about this and I'm a singer-songwriter. I mean, you did it when we first came in and we were talking. I want to have a deep impact in helping people understand who they are. I mean, that is you. I could see for you, if you're comfortable with it, you stepping into being your own brand and owning that piece. Like, my job is to help you understand everything there is about you, to love all parts of you, to experience all part of you. My name's Robin. You know what I mean? Like that sort of an energy right on the website from the get-go. How can I help you explore this? Well, there's my podcast and here's my music. And on the back end too, there's also the B2B part with your music we were talking about, right? That really having that commercial success and having your music support other artwork that way. I would make a list of all the people you want to work with, all the people who should know about your music, all of the other artists, directors, writers, producers out there who should know who the hell you are. And, with the internet, you've heard of it. It's like there's an SEO part to this internet thing. Yeah. You can find anybody. So I would make a list, as far as commercial success, like you were saying, the SEO is fine, but this is really your dream. Like this brand of you helping create this massive impact where people know who they are. They understand how to love all aspects of themselves. That vision you have for the world being supported by this, you're going to need the commercial financial success, right? So I think moving off the aspects of the podcast that don't work for you is going to make the podcast more successful, right? And that may also very well include a podcast agent, right? So you have the person editing, that's their 10, that's what they do. And then you have a massive connector and that's what they do and they support you with that. And that will help the podcast become more successful. And then whether you decide to do sponsored episodes or just have commercials like other people do, that's fine. It doesn't matter. Or have an affiliate relationship with people or use it just to raise money. Whatever you want to do with it, it's yours.
And in terms of finding agents, now that has been an honest challenge for me.
Okay.
In terms of as a music or writer, there's the internet and anyone can reach out to anyone, but a lot of people are very guarded. And it's not, I know a lot of people have connections. I could probably figure things out, but not always. Not to reach certain people. So do you have ideas about
I do.
those kind of reaching out?
Yeah. One of the things that I think we all have to remember, and you've heard me say this because you're a member, right? We talk about this all the time, that when we reach out to any type of PR, right? Anytime we're trying to make a connection, it's never about us. We have to understand any editor, like if you want someone to cover the podcast or talk about your music, they are dying for the next best article they can write, like the next best find. And so if you're imagining being that person instead of you, be that person who's like, where the hell is the next art? I can't, they're all idiots. I can't find, whatever they're going through. What do they need? Right? Research what they've covered before, research who they've worked with before, and make sure you understand what is their viewpoint here and how do I help them? And I think the more that we can reach out with that idea of this is not just about me, I want you to be so proud of the next thing you produce, the next contact you make, the next time you introduce someone. I want you to be like, dude, I can't wait for you to meet Robin. That's really what you're going for, is helping them be really, really great at their job. And reaching out that way as opposed to, I'm so great and you're so lucky I do, and people do that. And that is why people are guarded. But I think you have a warmth and an honesty that comes through in what you do, and you want to, that's also one of your gifts, so you want to honor that. And as you reach out, I don't care if you reach out to the New York Times, I don't care if you're reaching out to Joe Schmo that none of us know about, but who's really great in your world that you know really well. Either, it doesn't matter as long as you're offering to help them by giving them something awesome to cover, something that's relevant, something that not everybody's doing. And if you can find that, you'll get through. But you've got to trust yourself to actually do that work. And it's more intellectual than it is anything else. Like we're saying, like the footwork of actually finding the people, that's not the hard work. The hard work is remembering there's a human being on the other side of that email, and you need to make sure they feel seen, heard, and valued. That's your job. And to make their job easier and a no-brainer, then you're going to get through. You will. But it is work, right? That's not fluff. That takes energy and time and focus, but it's worth it. And that kind of work, by the way, is you honoring your voice. It's you honoring that impact. And this is why I call them unsexy tasks. When I always joke around about like the unsexy tasks nobody sees that all of us business owners have to do, that's an unsexy task. No one's going to know how much research you do there. No one's going to know how much you do to make sure that that email gets through so that your podcast gets heard by more people, so your music ends up on the commercial, like whatever it is that you're after. You've got to do that unsexy work. And the next time you get stuck, because I'm hearing you say, okay, I've got the grief to deal with, I got that. I actually don't know what to do sometimes. Like I get that feeling. I know what you're saying. And one, you can look at other people who've been successful in what you want to do, because success leaves clues. And you can look back at it and say, what did they do? How'd they do this?
Right.
The next thing you can ask yourself is, if I were already there, what would I tell me to do? You know the answers. You can sit back and say, come on, you've made it. You've done it. You're everything you've ever wanted to be. What would that version of me say right now? Do it right now. Do this. What would you tell yourself to do?
Yeah, I honestly don't think I know the answer to that.
Yeah, I think you do. I mean,
You
look,
think I do? I
do. Well, it would be finding the people who could support you.
Right.
Right? Researching what other people who are successful have done, and then doing that too.
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does. I mean, yeah, my successful person still doesn't have the specifics, but I have some idea of where to go.
You do.
Yeah.
You're not just saying that. Like, I want to make sure you.
No,
really know what
I
you
mean,
do.
I think I can start to make steps according to what you just said. It's not crystal clear to me. And when I think of myself as like wildly successful, that person, like I'm not getting the crystal clear picture. I mean, of that success, yes, but of the steps to take, no, I'm not sure, because everyone that I know who really has reached everything they want, it's a very unique path. So there's similarities, but it's always very different.
But I think that's true of anything, though, right? No two paths are identical.
Right.
But you hit on something that they're similar, right? There's going to be certain milestones or hits that are going to be somewhat analogous, and you want to find those. Now, your path will be even different from that as well. There's no roadmap. There's no exact one way to do anything, right? So this idea that could you just tell me the next step? Could you just tell me that? Like, probably not, because it doesn't work that way. But there are similar steps people take, like reaching out, learning how to write letters in a way that people read them, making sure they have a list of producers, directors, writers that they'd want to work with, getting their music in the hands of the right people, using it for backdrops in your own stuff in different ways.
One of the things I definitely want to start doing is reaching out to people who I think are bigger than will want to hear from me. I say, oh, our little podcast only has so many listeners. Maybe this person won't want to be on it, but I think I want to get rid of that and just start sending it out and reaching out, because people will be interested in what we have to say.
Yeah,
I'm
for
sure.
sure.
Of that.
Well, yeah, and the other thing really successful people get is every single audience matters.
Yeah.
Right? I don't even care if you have 10 people. If 3 of them end up like loving what I have to say or being excited, oh my God, let's talk, right? And most successful people really get that, and you want to honor that. And there's a great book, I love Brendon Burchard, but there's another book he wrote called The Millionaire Messenger. And in that book, he actually has a proposal letter he would send out to people, like, hey, can you partner with me? Or, hey, do you want to do this? And he was like, I had like 2 people and a dog on my list. Like, he had like nobody. And that he actually gives the letter that he sent out and how to tweak that. And so, like I said, once again, there are different clues left all over the place for us to sort of pick up and go, oh, I am really good at doing that. I'm going to do that with that person, or I'm really great this way. Like, whatever it is for you, you want to take all of these success clues that are out there and sort of infuse your own genius into it, and you will succeed. But you've got to do that work, and it's not fun. I'm like not even gonna, it's not fun.
Yeah.
It's not fun to do that research work, but that's why most people don't win. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You sure?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So to sum up, amazing, Robin, what are the next steps for you?
The next steps for me are to be creative, whether I like it or not. Whether it's painful or not. Once I really get into motion, I feel a lot better. But the getting into motion has been sticking point, you know. Find interns for hell or high water. I still don't know the answers to that. Like, how do we pay? What's the exchange? What works? But I think really going forward, people for whom it will really feel powerful and matter. And I see the whole project as a whole thing now, and I understand that. You know, I've always thought of myself as like my own personality or brand or whatever, and I think I've had this inhibition that, well, people aren't going to see that, or I've been thinking of that other piece that you've said about what is the problem that you solve for people, and I felt like that was the sticking point, because I'm like, I'm not sure I've solved a singular problem that I could explain that easily. But I think being a person who creates to reach people, and people want connection, you know, people want to feel their love and intellect and things that I want to appeal to. And I think I do believe that's important. So that's a thing.
Yeah.
That's valid.
Yeah, it is. I'm glad you got that. Yeah, it's almost like too, I think I almost see you like injecting life. Like everything that you just listed, right? Our people are craving at a level I don't think we've ever seen, because everyone feels so numbed out. Which, by the way, is something I think you're experiencing too, right? I think that's part of your fog, is you're so numbed out. And part of the problem, as you solve this problem for yourself, I think that's really going to get infused into both the podcast and the music that you produce at this point, because you are coming back to life. At least that's the way I see you after this tough period. And yours might have felt more personal on top of the, you know, the grand scale. We've all been feeling fuzzy, but I think it's time for you to come alive as well. And I think the more that you do that, the more cohesive your brand will become, and the more that you'll be able to help people. Yeah, I'm excited for you.
Likewise, thank you.
Thanks for coming here today.